Morning, everybody. I'm Chris Callahan with University of Vermont Extension. I'm honored to be the project director for NECAFS, Northeast Center to Advance Food Safety. It's great to see everybody today. And it was also, I felt, a really productive set of meetings yesterday based on what I'm hearing from folks. The working group focused, detailed conversations, and brainstorming. I want to start out by thanking a few folks for making today possible. First and foremost, all of you for being here. Thank you for making the time in your schedule, and thank you to your organizations for supporting you in doing that. Also want to thank the FDA and USDA and our own organizations for sponsoring this regional center's work and sponsoring the CAP programs among each of the states. That funding's been really critical to make sure that we stay connected and we continue to learn together. The other person I need to thank is Elizabeth Newbold, NECAFS Center Administrator. She really did all of the organization and logistics for this week's meetings and does a lot, all of the positive organizational things that NECAFS benefits from all year long. So thank you, Elizabeth. And she loves the attention. I'd like to begin by just reorienting everybody to what NECAFS is about. We started out in 2016, February 2016, we started our project. It actually grew out of a very small meeting in Amherst, Massachusetts in 2014, which was just a group of people getting together and saying, what more can we do regionally focused on post-harvest in produce? And that was a need near a planning grant. The Northeast Extension Directors and Experiment Station Directors Association funded a planning grant to chat about that topic. That really established a core group and some momentum that led to our successful proposal to the FDA to be funded as a regional center that became known as NECAFS. In that proposal, the stated goals were as noted here. Our reason for being is to increase the understanding and adoption of established food safety standards through food safety training, education, technical assistance for those affected by the Food Safety Modernization Act, especially a particular focus on small, medium-sized producers and small processors. So one of the key things to keep in mind is NECAFS has a focus of both related to the produce safety rule and the preventive controls for human foods rule. And that was heard loud and clear yesterday with our parallel working group sessions. Some of our objectives are to build collaborative capacity and competency, fostering diverse community partnership, ultimately educate a focused target audience, promoting national integration. We have folks here from the National Coordination Center as well as a couple of the other regional centers throughout the country to ultimately make a positive impact and, of course, plan for sustainability of the organization. A couple of highlights from the past year of NECAFS results. Our e-newsletter circulation has grown from an initial count of 19 to 292, so that's been pretty dramatic growth, and we are receiving feedback all the time about the value of those communications and the need for them more frequently. So we'll be increasing our focus there. We do have an active website and something we've been sandboxing for the past couple of months called the NECAFS Clearing House, which I'll get into in just a moment, a one-stop shop for food safety related resources. We do have a webinar series. We have been doing about 6 per year. Again, this has been very popular, and we plan to increase the frequency of these webinars. We'd love to do monthly webinars. Part of what we need is participation. It shouldn't just be us. The idea is to highlight the good work throughout the region, so we're more familiar with what each other's working on. We do have all of those recorded. They're on a YouTube channel. And they do get repeat views. Over the past year, and one of the key outcomes of last year's annual meeting was the establishment of working groups It was a couple were identified last year's annual meeting, and a couple have developed since then. Yesterday's meetings were focused meetings were the result of working group effort over the past year to really formalize some of that. In particular, the preventive controls group that met yesterday really grew out of a lot of effort from Amanda Kinchla at UMass, Nicole Richard at URI, Luke Laborde at Penn State, and Donna Schaffner at Rutgers, to really think more deeply about how can we reach small processors more effectively, and how can we help the FSPCA Preventive Controls for Human Foods curriculum reach them more effectively. Some really good outcomes from yesterday's meeting in that regard. We've also supported the trainer development through the Training Support Stipend Program. We've developed 14 trainers last year with support. The other thing that we've done over the past year is evolve that program to also support training delivery. Feedback from the group, from the regional network, has indicated that we're sort of getting trained out in the area of trainers, or trainers have other funding support. And so, but there is a need for support in the area of training delivery. So supporting the actual delivery of a training in a particular location. And so the TSSP program now supports that. And all the information on that is available on our website. And then the Special Project Grant Program, we've awarded 4 projects total over the past 2 years on a variety of areas, both preventive controls related and produce safety related. So one of the things I mentioned before was the NECAFS Clearing House. This has been a response to something we identified early in our proposal, but it's also been a response to the repeated request for having one place where we can all go to grab resources and put resources that have been developed. And so it is largely a database of resources, people, projects, publications, and as well as events related to food safety in our region and frankly beyond. This has actually become a resource of national interest as well. The target audience is educators and service providers for this version of it. We do have a special projects grant that's been funded to work on developing a grower portal to help growers, producers find produce safety related resources more easily that are relevant to their needs. So that's at go.uvm.edu Clearing House. This is just the search interface for it shown here. So we have a variety of types of resources, so that can be people, national curricula, fact sheets, videos, etc., and then topics broken down between preventive controls and produce safety. So anybody can sign up to add resources to this currently and just add the resources. One of the key intents of this is not to duplicate the resource, but rather link to its home organization. So if a resource is developed by Diane Hirsch at UConn, we would like to have something here that describes the resource, categorizes it, and provides a link to it rather than duplicating the post here. So some of the next steps on the clearinghouse are continued collection and curation of resources. So that is an invitation to all of you to sign up and become contributors to the clearinghouse and become users of the clearinghouse. It's been slowly gaining resources and being populated, but I know there's a lot more out there that we could have put into it. We have a couple of other user experience type features that we're looking to add in the next year, one of which is peer review functionality. And so while it's great to just crowdsource all the resources that are available, at some point we really should have some means of providing a stamp of approval or peer review. So that's something we look forward to implementing over the next year, as well as capturing ratings and analytics. So how are these resources being used? And again, being able to feed that information back to the original author of the material for their evaluation needs. And lastly, using the clearinghouse to better understand the entire landscape of resources that are in the region so that we can start to identify any gaps that exist and better understand how to fill those gaps collectively. This is something that came up, at least in the preventive controls meeting repeatedly yesterday, knowing what we don't have and don't know and developing that knowledge. Great. Questions on NECAFS or the clearinghouse? Yeah.
You said at the meeting yesterday.
Right, so the question is, why are we encouraging links on the clearinghouse as opposed to actual documents? A couple of reasons. One is to ensure that the author and their organization is receiving the credit due for the work. We don't want to take that away from anybody. And part of that is being able to, enabling their own web tracking and analytics of visitorship to their resources. The other thing is currency. So ensuring that what we're linking to remains the current, most updated version. If there's one thing I've learned over the past 2 years, this is a very dynamic landscape, and so the resources that we think are current 6 months ago may not be today. And so those are the two main reasons why we'd like to maintain that architecture. Questions? Great. Well, we have a really nice program outlined today for the annual meeting, annual conference. This is the rough outline. You have a complete agenda, hopefully on your table. If you don't, we have additional on the table outside. We have a wonderful keynote speaker this morning. We'll be doing state updates as well as having our first panel. This year's annual conference, based on feedback last year, has been developed to include a number of panels, practitioner panels, starting with producers in the morning. We have a buyer panel right after lunch, and then a processor panel in the afternoon. We also have incorporated a poster session this evening, and perhaps more importantly for some, there'll be wine and cheese and beverages along with that. And that will be the day. We'll have dinner on our own again tonight. It's really important as well that the yellow sheets come back to us. These are our evaluations of the annual meeting on one side, and on the other side, more generally about NECAFS. The meeting this year has really been developed based on feedback from last year and through the course of the year, so we definitely want feedback on the annual meeting. And as equally important, we're still very much interested in hearing back from you how NECAFS is doing in general, what more we can do to support the goals of the region in regards to food safety, and what more we can do to support you individually. So please give us that feedback. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Deanna Baldwin, who is the Program Manager for Food Quality Assurance in the State of Maryland Department of Agriculture. All right, thanks, Deanna. Our local host.
Actually, I'm not quite the entire local host. Our Maryland team was very happy to host this meeting or be the local host, and of course Chris Callahan and Elizabeth, the amazing Elizabeth. We would not be as organized or as effective as we have been for the yesterday and today without Elizabeth. Sorry, Chris, she gets all the credit.
I agree.
Chris Walsh and Kathy Hunt were part of the beginning of organizing this meeting, but it's really, really important to Maryland and to the departments of agriculture. I think I speak for all the state departments of agriculture and Owen when in the room that education is the most important part to gaining compliance with any of the FSMA rules. And our regulatory agencies could not get there without the assistance of the educators. So the work of this group is just so important to successful implementation of the produce safety rule, preventive controls for human foods, all the different rules that have come out of that. I see Socrates nodding his head, but FDA has taken the educate before you regulate, while you regulate approach, so which opens up a wonderful opportunity for us to all work together and help our growers, our food producers stay in business and be compliant with the rule. It's been very, very helpful, I think, we had Owen was very instrumental in starting the Northeast Cap Holder Agreement, people working together when we had a meeting in June. It's very nice to have it in conjunction with NECAFS so that we can see what everybody's doing and collaborate better, and I think it's going to make for a very successful implementation of the different rules that are related to the Food Safety Modernization Act. So welcome to Maryland. We're glad you're here, and thank you to everybody for making it such a successful meeting. So.
Thanks, Deanna.
Yep.